Now can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. I'm not sure what's going on, but Zoom is not working on this computer. I had to restart it. And I had it started for a while there, and it seemed like nobody could hear me. I can't minimize this. Let me share my screen. For the sound, I'm not going to optimize for videos. We're not going to watch a video. If we can continue this. Should look up the lecture. I mean the syllabus. I think we're only meeting once this week for the lab. And if that's true, I think I'd rather do it when I have a computer that would work better than this one. I'm not sure. Zoom used to work on this computer. They may have upgraded Zoom and it's no longer working well. Or it might have been just there was a, what do you call that? Not a bug, but a problem with my computer when it started because Zoom kept crashing. I think this is the fourth time I've started Zoom now. I had to restart my computer, so that's why the PowerPoint has to be restarted. And I took off the headphones because at least one of the times the headphones weren't working. All right, I think we were to this stage where the NADH and the FADH2 were carrying electrons. Electrons to the, oh gosh, carrying electrons to the electron transport chain. The electron transport chain does have a number of names. Can you guys see my screen? This is unusual. I don't usually have the picture of you guys.
Yes.
All right, great. I don't know why I've got this. Normally that's up there. Let me see if I can simplify this. Is that still working? Maybe that'll make it a little easier. System. Last time that wasn't even here. All right, so the electrons are carried by NADH and FADH2 to the electron transport chain. The electron transport chain does have a couple of names. The book tends to call it the electron transport chain, and I will too. The abbreviation is ETC. It can also be called electron transport phosphorylation because there's phosphorylation going on in the process. It can also be called chemiosmosis. I don't tend to use that name. Another name, which I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it does have a couple of names. I'll always use it, the electron transport chain. In the electron transport chain, the electrons are carried by NADH and FADH2 to proteins in a chain, meaning one after the other, in a membrane. In eukaryotes, this is the inner mitochondrial membrane. In prokaryotes, this is the cell membrane. And the electrons transport from one protein in the chain of proteins to the next. Why it's called the electron transport chain. In eukaryotes, this is the inner mitochondrial, so there's an outer mitochondria out here. In prokaryotes, this is the cell membrane. So what this is out here is largely the cell wall. So NADH and FADH2 bring the electrons, and then they move from one to another. I'll talk about what they do in a minute. And then the electrons move from one protein into the chain to the next, to the next, to the next. And then the electrons leave the chain of proteins and go to the final electron acceptor. In aerobic respiration, the final electron acceptor is oxygen. So the electrons join with oxygen and with 2 hydrogen ions to form water. And this is why we have to breathe. This is what happens to the oxygen. None of the oxygen we breathe in is converted into CO2. The CO2 all comes from the burning of the carbons of glucose. The oxygen we breathe in is converted into water by aerobic respiration. Some of this water is breathed out. That's why we have fog in our breath. Some of the water is conserved by the body and will be used as just ordinary water. Desert animals are very good at conserving the water they generate in aerobic respiration. And this water they generate in aerobic respiration is their major source of water, meaning over 50% of the water they get is from aerobic respiration. Humans, of course, are not that good at conserving that. We breathe out a lot of the water. When the electrons move from one protein in the chain of protein to the next, they give some of the proteins, meaning this one, that one, and that one, the energy the protein needs to pump hydrogen ions from this side of the membrane to that side of the membrane. Question about any of that? The ATP being produced in the electron transport chain, or the ETC, of aerobic respiration, for prokaryotes, it's 34 molecules of ATP per molecule of glucose. For eukaryotes, it's between 32 and 34 molecules of ATP. It depends what cell it is. Most cells only generate 32 molecules of ATP per molecule of glucose, but some of them, meaning the heart, the kidneys, and the liver, generate 34 molecules of ATP per molecule of glucose. Why do you think the heart, the liver, and the kidneys are more efficient at generating ATP from aerobic respiration than your other cells, like your skin cell, your brain cell? What do you know about the heart? Well, is the heart working? Is it always working?
Doesn't it take more energy to keep the heart pumping?
Well, it does take more energy to keep it pumping, but the point is it's always working. And actually your kidneys and your liver are always working also. That's not the case for your skin cells. They're not always working. In fact, most of the time the skin cells aren't doing much. Same with your muscle cells. They're not always working. I'm talking about your muscles to move yourself. And the heart and the liver and the kidney are always working. So they're more efficient at generating ATP. And as I stated, in aerobic respiration, the final electron acceptor is oxygen. It will be converted into water, taking the electrons and the hydrogen ions to form water. Showing you actually the overview of aerobic respiration and fermentation. Here we're looking at the overview of the electron transport chain. And let's go on to the next slide where it's bigger. Showing you the NADH and the FADH2, bringing in the electrons to the first protein in the membrane. You don't need to know these names, but the electron transferred from one protein to the next, and the molecules are oxidized and then reduced. So when FMN receives the electron, it is reduced, and then it donates the electron, so it'll become oxidized to the next molecule. And that just continues all the way down until the electron flows to oxygen. Why the system does it this way is to release the energy in the electron slowly. Because if you release all the energy at once, you would have so much energy that it would fry the cell. And so it releases the energy in controlled steps, and it makes ATP along the way. And I'd like to talk about this slide, and then we'll end. This is showing you, let me blow this up. Electron transport chain in the eukaryotic cell, where it happens in the inner mitochondrial membrane, and in the prokaryotic cell, where it happens in the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. The electrons in the eukaryote, should say the hydrogen ions, when they're pumped from this side of the membrane to that side of the membrane, they will be caught by the outer membrane. So they'll be pumped into this space in between the inner membrane and the outer membrane. And it's thought this is protection. Why eukaryotes do ATP production in the mitochondria. And in prokaryotes, it happens in the cell membrane, and the hydrogen ions actually are pumped into the cell wall. The purpose of pumping the hydrogen ions into the cell wall is you create a twofold gradient. We have more hydrogen ions on this side than that side, and we have more positive charge on this side than this side. So these hydrogen ions are, by the law of diffusion, going to want to come to this side of the membrane. And the cell uses this potential energy difference to make ATP. When the hydrogen ions move across the membrane, they can only do so at this point here. And this channel protein is ATP synthase. When hydrogen ion moves through this protein, it gives the protein the energy it needs to make ATP, meaning it phosphorylates ADP. Any question about any of that? All right, if there's no question about that, let me take a look at the syllabus. We don't normally meet on Thursday, but we are supposed to meet tonight. And I think I'm going to reverse this because I'll hopefully have a better computer to run Zoom. And Oh, we got this stupid thing again. Another one time. So today is October 25th, and we didn't get very much done in the lecture. Oh, it's not the right one. I have a feeling I don't have the right. Oh, I got my thumb drive in here. So come on. Ah, that was a problem. I was starting that again. And that'll come up. On Thursday, I'm going to not have the meeting today for the lab, and we will have it on Thursday because I will have a better computer to run Thursday. And hopefully I can get a lab. If not, we're going to be stuck with this laptop, and I'll just try and do my best. All right, any questions about any of this? I will try and send out the first results for the lab sometime tonight. Any questions about anything? If not, I'm going to say goodbye. In the lab for maybe 15 minutes for just questions and answers.